everyone, and I am here today with a very belated reading wrap up. As ever, I get a bit distracted and before I know it, weeks have passed, but here we are. I've got 10 books to talk to you about today because I can't remember the last time I filmed one of these, to be honest. So the first book I finished since the last wrap up was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I listened to this as an audiobook and I gave it 3 stars. And if you've not heard of the Grisha trilogy, I'm not sure where you have been because it's quite a well-known trilogy. But this is the first book in the series and it's basically a YA fantasy series, and I was expecting to really enjoy this, so 3 stars is a bit like, Basically, I don't know whether it was me listening to this as an audiobook or whether it was more a case of this series isn't for me. Because it's not going to be for everyone. Doesn't matter how many people love it, it's not going to be for everyone. But all the same, I don't want to think badly of it yet. So I'm either going to continue on with the series and just carry on plodding on with the second one, but not on audio, I don't think. Or I'm going to reread the first one as a physical book and then decide whether I want to continue on with the series, because I don't want to just have maybe had a bad audiobook experience with it, because me and fantasy on audiobook are a very thing. Some I love, some I really struggle to properly get into the headspace. So this might just be one of those where it wasn't right for me to go for the audiobook, so keep you posted on this one. The second book I finished was The Honeymoon by Tina Seskis, and I received this from the publisher via NetGalley in return for an honest review, and I gave it 4 stars? Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. And oh my goodness, if you're looking for a psychological thriller that's a bit different, a bit more out there, this might be the one for you. So this basically, as it says, a psychological thriller that follows a woman who has recently got married and has gone on a honeymoon with her husband. While on the honeymoon, her husband disappears and things go from there. You shouldn't know any more than that. I'm not going to say any more than that. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, then go pick it up because I highly recommend it. And so the only reason I gave it 4 stars rather than 5 is because it dragged a little bit in the middle. It suffered from that whole slight middle dip thing. The beginning's excellent, the end's excellent, the middle just went a bit meh for me. But 10 out of 10 out there for the whole story of it, because it blew me away. Then I finished another audiobook, and this one, it might be a bit controversial in some ways. Basically, I listened to Girl Online by Zoe Sugg, Zoella. This one was officially known to be ghostwritten, and I gave it 5 stars. I've been putting this book off for years, I'm not joking, simply because I wanted to avoid the whole ghostwritten thing. Now, I'm not going to lie, I actually really like Zoella. I watch a lot of her videos, but I'm not happy necessarily supporting ghostwriting. But in this case, I couldn't help myself. You know when it's a bit like if you experienced the whole thing of reading Twilight. As you're reading it, you can tell that you shouldn't be enjoying it because it's not the best written book in the world, but at the same time you just can't help yourself. It's really good. You find yourself really enjoying it and you're just like, this is actually a great book. You're having a fab time. And that is really how I was with this first one. I really, really fell in love with Penny, the main character. I just thought that she was so relatable as much as anything, and even though I am definitely way above the age that this book is targeted for, I still had a fantastic time. And I think in this case this one helped that I listened to it on audiobook because the narrator suited the character down to the ground. I now associate reading that book with that character with this voice in my head. The narrator is Cara Toynton, I think that's the right sister, and yeah, it blew me away. If you've been dodging this one for similar reasons, maybe give it a go. You might feel the same as me, and definitely audiobook all the way. So on that note, it won't surprise you at all that the moment I finished that book, I decided to jump straight into the second book in this series, so Girl Online on Tour. And I felt the same feelings for this one. Had so much love for the series. I also gave this one 5 stars. This one, again, I can't talk about the plot with this one because it would be spoiling left, right and centre, but to say that this one made me cry my eyes out would probably be an understatement. I bawled my eyes out. I can't remember the last time I cried for about 30 minutes straight to a book. And you can say what you want, as I said, about the writing and the author and whatnot, but at the end of the day, if a book hooks you in to that extent, it's got to be doing something right. So again, 5 stars, loved it. Check out this series. At this point, I was on a real audiobook kick. I was like, oh, I'm loving all these audiobooks. What can I read next? I wanted a nice quick read so I could keep my momentum up, and so I went for A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This is obviously a story that I've been hearing a lot about over the last few years, especially when the film came out towards the end of last year. Just people raving about this story left, right and centre. But I'd always managed to sort of dodge really knowing much about it. This is about a young boy whose mother is being treated for cancer and a monster visits him. That is, in essence, all you need to know. If you've not seen the film or read the book yet, I highly recommend listening again to the audiobook. That's what I did for this one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The narrator, again, really suited the part perfectly, and as a result, I gave this one 4 stars. Next we have Beating the Odds by Paul Connolly, and this was my TBR book at Paul for, I think it was the last video I filmed, to be honest. I actually managed to read one of my TBR choices, which is just fantastic. As I said when I pulled this one out back at the time, this is actually the second book in a sort of series. I read the first one quite a while ago. That one is called Against All Odds, and these are basically a series of memoirs by Paul Connolly and about his experience, especially his childhood growing up, what he went through living in a home, sort of not feeling loved, but not just that, living in a home that basically covers all sorts of levels of abuse. It's really quite traumatic reading at times, and it makes you really admire how he could have ever got through life and got to the stage he is now. And that, in essence, is what basically gets covered in the second book too, which causes a few problems for me because it does get a little bit repetitive at times. If you've read the first one, the second one you will feel like you are just reading the same story over and over and over. But at the same time, it does throw in enough new things to the point where you're like, oh my god. And so you can't help but like just fall in love for Paul and all that he's gone through all over again. And so, despite having quite a few issues with this book at times, I still gave it 4 stars, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. Next we have The Toilet Papers by Jamie Engel, and this is a book that I received from the publisher via NetGalley in return for an honest review, and I gave it 2 stars. This one let me down a little bit. It's a short story collection that's really suited to basically sitting and reading on the toilet, and that just sounded like such a fun idea. So, of course, I was eager to check it out. I didn't read it on the toilet, I might add. I just sort of read a couple of stories here, a couple of stories there over the period of a good few days. And I think my biggest issue with this was, with any short story collection, there's going to be stories that you like, there's going to be stories that you hate. And with this collection, I just found there was more than I hated than what I liked. Even the ones I liked, I didn't absolutely love. And that just sort of put me off a little bit, really. I still think that overall this is a really fun read. I think it's more the sort of book that you might want to buy someone as sort of a extra stocking filler kind of thing for a Christmas present, that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily buy it to just sit and read it yourself. After that, I needed a bit of a pick-me-up, and I'd started the booktubeathon at this point. So I decided to go and read the 3rd book in the Girl Online series, and this one is Going Solo. And this is the only one that I read as a physical form rather than the audiobook, just because I already owned this one because I kind of went for a signed copy basically. But this one, despite not being an audiobook, shut up dog, I still really enjoyed. I gave this one 5 stars too, and this was a really different experience reading it rather than the audiobook. I still really enjoyed it. By this point I was so in love with the characters that I'd have had to have done something really bad for me to hate it. And needless to say, this did wonderful things. You learn, I feel like Penny as well learns a lot more about herself in this 3rd book in the series, and so yeah, I really enjoyed this one. As I've been saying throughout this video, if you've been dodging these books for similar reasons to what I had, then just give it a go because it really might surprise you. I loved this. Next we have the other book that I managed to read during the booktubeathon, and that is Juniper Lemons' Happiness Index by Julie Israel. And I gave this one 3 stars, and this one was just a little bit of a disappointment for me actually. I hate to think of it as a disappointment, but it's just, I've read For those of you who aren't aware, this is a YA contemporary novel about a girl whose sister dies. And I've read other books about this topic, and as sad as it sounds, I feel like this one didn't bring much to the table. I've read other books that have done it a lot better than this one, and this one, like, it obviously had side plots going on and what have you, and I just wasn't engrossed in them. I wasn't particularly bothered about the characters. Some of them were lovable, but the rest are kind of forgettable. Like, I read this a couple of weeks ago now, and already I'm thinking, what can I remember about this book? Except for the happiness index, which is quite a cute idea, but so many things happen with this happiness index that just make me like, this just isn't realistic at all. And so I had quite a few issues and problems with this book overall. I will be doing a full review for this next week or the week after, so watch out for that. And the final book I want to talk to you about is another psychological thriller, and that is The Death of Her by Debbie Howells. This is the second Debbie Howells book I've read, the first being this one, which was The Bones of You, which I absolutely loved. And so I had high expectations for this book, and I wasn't disappointed. I actually buddy read it with Favourite Fred Weasley Died Laughing. I decided to try and get her into Debbie Howells, and it worked a treat because we both gave it 4 stars. We both received this from the publisher via NetGalley in return for an honest review, and yeah, like I said, we decided to buddy read it. And it was just such a fun experience buddy reading this book of all books, because as I said, this is a psychological thriller, so it sends you on so many twists and turns. You've got multiple perspectives, of which they all feel like really unreliable narrators, especially one of the main characters, Charlotte. I was just like, I didn't know what to think of what she was saying. From one page to the next, I was like, can I actually believe you? Can I trust you? And then you'd think the same about anyone else's perspective you saw. I was doubting anyone and everyone right up to the very last page, literally. And I really like it when an author can mess with your head to that extent and just really confuse you and make you so uncomfortable. It was really quite a creepy read at times, and again, I highly recommend this one too because I just absolutely adored it. So that is everything I've read recently, and now on to what I'm currently reading. So I'm currently about halfway through my current audiobook, which is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I'm still plodding on with Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I am now on page 280, so slow progress there, slow progress. My current Kindle book is We Own the Sky by Sarah Crawford, who is a booktuber and asked me if I could review this for her, and so I gladly wanted to support another fellow booktuber, and I am loving it so far, and like, that is my honest opinion. I'm loving it. I can't wait to review this one for you. It's just, I can't wait to see where it's going to go either, to be honest. I'm only about 40% in, so exciting times for this one. So it is time to do another TBR bucket pull. One's just fallen out. I'm not going to count that one, it was from near the top, and I didn't even try to put my hand in. Oh, stop jumping out, books, stop jumping out. I'm going to put the one that jumped out back and stick with the one I've pulled out. What have we got here? Ooh, all I can see right now is the author, and I know the author. Okay, so I've got Before the Storm by Diane Chamberlain. And I've read another book by Diane Chamberlain in the past. I wish that dog would shut up. I'm not being funny, but if you get a dog, why would you leave it outside barking all day, every single day? Rant over. So yeah, Before the Storm, I can't remember what this one's about, but as I said, I have read other books by Diane Chamberlain. I can't think of the name of the one I'm thinking of right now, but I absolutely adored it, so it'd be really great to pick up something else by this author. So this is a great pick. And that is that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking the image of me just there if you want to see more book reviews and other bookish content from me. And I will see you tomorrow. Well, actually, I won't see you tomorrow. You will see Luke tomorrow with him taking over my channel to talk about his thoughts about books as a non-reader. It should be an interesting one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.